Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard our flight to Point Place, Wisconsin, 1976. Don't want to cause any alarm, but one of our co-pilots has jumped out of the plane and will not be with us today. It'll be a quick trip 49 years in the past, so sit back, relax, and if you're going to smoke weed, make sure you do it in the basement so we know you're safe.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. I'm Rich Inman. With me, as always, is my co-pilot, Max Singer. Geoff Kerbis is away on assignment in the jungles of Saudi Arabia, he says, so we wish him the best.
Oh, did you make a D.B. Cooper reference? That's November 24th, 1971, a little bit before today's pilot.
Beautiful. Yeah, today we were talking about That 70s Show, a show that I believe probably both of us have seen nearly every episode, if not, up until the point where it kind of jumps the shark a little bit and starts rotating through its cast of characters. But Max, do you want to tell people what this podcast is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more if they can be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
Beautiful. And I do bring a question of the week every week, just to get us started a little bit talking about the pilot and what it means to us. Since you and I were only... This is going to be the oldest thing that either of us feel the entire episode, but when this pilot canonically takes place, it is only 16 years removed from when we were both... 14 years removed from when we were both actually born.
That 2011 show.
That sucks.
Yeah, think about that all day.
I'm going to try not to. So I got to know, based on your own childhood in comparison to the gang in Point Place, Wisconsin, how much does your adolescence mirror what the show depicts in 1976?
I mean, pilot and pilot alone, it feels pretty close. I also had the basement in question, the concept of the basement that people hung out in. A lot of it was we're trying to figure out ways to go to concerts and things of that sort. I do think the show does a very good job of just mimicking the basics of adolescent life, but in terms of wanting to get a car, wanting to go to concerts, other things, pretty close.
Yeah, I think with any adolescent experience, people are put a lot of emphasis on smoking weed, drinking beer, and trying to hook up with chicks. And this is no exception. And I do think with the amount of Steve Miller Band I used to listen to when I was in high school, this is almost like a direct reconstruction of my adolescence. I
mean, you're talking to a guy who was very excited to see Blue Oyster Cult in high school. I saw The Who when I was in high school.
Hell yeah.
I never saw Todd Rundgren, but I'm not that far off from the plot of today's pilot.
My mom is such a huge Todd Rundgren fan. I can only imagine what she would have thought of this pilot.
Should have had her on.
Yeah, hold on. Let me dial in Emily Inman really quick. So obviously, let's talk a little bit about the synopsis of this show. We got something here from IMDb. It's just like a pretty basic log line, I would say. A comedy revolving a group of teenage friends, their mishaps, their coming of age, and set in 1970s Wisconsin. Yeah, sure. It's fine. I love that when we do this segment, the only thing that we can come up with is either that was pretty long or, yeah, all right, fine.
I mean, this is basically this is the segment of the podcast that's brought to you by Amazon. We stole a log line off IMDb.
Yeah, until IMDb starts sending us some money, we don't have to mention them, though. Now, Max, obviously that 70s show is an important show for anyone who grew up around this era and just trying to compare that universal experience of being 16. What is this show all about and how did it get made?
So today we are talking about the pilot of That 70s Show titled That 70s Pilot, which originally aired on August 23rd, 1998 on Fox. And we're talking about the show's creators Bonnie and Terry Turner a bit more. Primetime Emmy winners for their time on Saturday Night Live are the creators of Third Rock from the Sun. Go back and stream TVPL's episode on Third Rock. The Turners teamed up with consulting writer named Mark Brazel from Third Rock to create a 70s set coming-of-age comedy. The show is known as the first official credit for numerous members of its main cast, including Topher Grace, who was seen in a high school production of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum by the Turners. Their daughter worked on the sets for the high school's production. Laura Prepon, a model and commercial actress, and Ashton Kutcher, a Calvin Klein model, as well as one previous credit for Wilmer Valderrama. True to its classic rock roots, the show went through multiple working titles. Originally titled Teenage Wasteland, the producers were unable to secure the rights to Bob O'Reilly from The Who. They tried again with The Kids Are All Right, also shot down by Pete Townsend.
Why did they keep going back to The Who?
If at first you don't succeed.
Fox, maybe Pete Townsend didn't hear you.
At Fox Network Upfronts, the show was presented as Feelin' All Right, named for the song by Traffic and Joe Cocker.
Hell yeah.
The title was deemed not memorable enough, leading Bonnie Turner to suggest that 70s show since, quote, that's what everyone is going to end up calling it anyways. The show's memorable theme song is a cover of In the Street by the band Big Star, performed in today's pilot by Todd Griffin, though it's best known for the cover performed by Cheap Trick beginning in Season 2. Today's pilot is directed by Terry Hughes, an Emmy winner best known for helming 108 episodes of The Golden Girls. It is the only episode of the series not directed by David Traynor.
Wow.
And that takes us to today's pilot.
Beautiful. I mean, I really do. Max, you told me, like, when we were doing the research for this show or preparing for this episode, that it was pretty hard for you to find information on how this show got made. Do you know why that might be, or have any inkling?
I think it's one of those weird areas where it's a cultural touchstone in terms of the impact that individual cast had on the landscape of pop culture in the early aughts. But if you want to dive into this show, you're going to get a bunch of casting fun facts about people in its ensemble. You're going to get fun tidbits about working titles and how many times The Who rejected them naming this show for their songs. If anyone has other ideas for Who songs that this should have been called, feel free to DM us. But there's not a lot in terms of how did this get greenlit? How did this get made? What did it look like? What was the situation at Fox? And that is surprising given the Turners' success in the early 90s with working on Wade's World, Coneheads, the Brady Bunch movie, obviously Third Rock from the Sun being this perennial Emmy nominee and winner at this time. But it does feel like the non-pop culture implication of this show has somewhat been scrubbed from the public consciousness.
Yeah.
So I think let's just dive in and see, is there a reason? Does this hold up? Are we still feeling this 27 years later?
I mean, I think for me, the fact that nearly every single member of this cast became a household name, like, over time, like, you know, Topher Grace had a bit of a time in between this and like his next major role. Laura Prepon like revitalized her career with Orange Is the New Black.
Kurtwood Smith was People's Sexiest Man Alive.
That's right. Yeah, we all remember that. 2024 was a crazy year. It's so interesting that like so much attention was given to this entire cast, and you know, we do feel very connected to them in the sense that they stayed so culturally relevant for such a long time. But yeah, let's jump into the basement. We got what you defined as the long and winding cold open.
I hope you love all these 70s rock and roll references. We're hitting you with them all day. And yeah, we meet a lot of this ensemble right off the bat. It is a time card smashing into frame. We get very simple details: a date, a year, a location, and 4 high schoolers sitting in a basement on ratty couches coming up with a plan to steal beers from a party upstairs.
And I do think that this is where they kind of establish the tone of voice for the entire pilot, because what it's ultimately going to be is they're hanging out at Eric Foreman's house, who's, I would say, like the de facto protagonist, I guess, just because they're at his house. They spend the most time with his family. There's a house party being thrown by their parents upstairs. And what I think was the difficult moment in selling this pilot is that it doesn't seem like a lot happens in this cold open. It doesn't seem like there's a lot more than like establishing the rapport between the characters. You know, they're supposed to be 16 or something like that in this pilot. They're not going to have like interesting shit to say. There's not going to be like wants and needs that are beyond like, I want a car, I want a girlfriend, I want to smoke weed, etc. I got to see Todd Rundgren.
And I think that's okay in a way too. This is very much a teen show. Like let's get that off the bat right away. This is not trying to be some highfalutin, highbrow comedy. This is not doing what Third Rock did. This is much more playing into the Turner strengths of, we did the Brady Bunch movie. We are going to layer on a lot of nostalgia, and we're going to try to make it about these evergreen stories that have a lot of details painted onto them. And I do think that they find fun ways to explore this. The second Eric goes upstairs to try to secure beers, mind you, 4 beers, 1 beer per person.
2 of them warm.
We immediately switch POVs into this like first person mentality.
I love this.
Seeing Eric make his way through the palette. It's such an interesting choice for, I guess what's like mostly it is multicam. It's a live studio audience. It's it's the broad 3/4 sets and things like that with no ceilings on them. And to switch to a first person POV does establish that we're going to play with the way that this looks. We're going to play with style, and also we're going to allow everyone to get a joke in and how it pertains to its protagonist. You kind of get that thing of like, everything that happens is affecting Eric and really establishes him cleanly as this is our person that we're following.
Yeah. And it kind of pushes Eric into the, am I going to make all the ethical choices for this entire group the entire time? Like, Hyde and Kelso are going to be like a combination of like the rebel plus the idiot. Laura Prepon's character Donna seems to be the voice of the writing staff a little bit. Like a lot of the jokes she makes are very much like, oh, we're 45-year-old comedy writers. Let's throw some of those that type of material in. But I think with the POV scene, you start to get like a break from like, this is not going to be Everybody Loves Raymond. This is not going to be Third Rock from the Sun. This is a departure from almost like what's the show, Kevin Can Go Fuck Himself or something like that? Was that so the switch from the very normal feeling of the multicam into this POV scene, it just feels like, we're taking some bigger swings here, where this is going to be stuff that's going to be visually appealing. It's a little bit like the Ally McBeal feel of it. It's just going to have those interchangeable moments that have its own calling card.
What if you think about this coming out in 1998 too, probably being filmed in early 98, you're also looking at this is the time when like first-person shooter games are starting to gain prevalence on like PlayStation and 64. No.
I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Like, no, but what I'm saying is that if you're marketing a show to teenagers,
right,
you want it to be something that teenagers can engage with. And so it's like, hey, listen, that thing that you love in your video games, like we're going to put it in this sitcom now too. We're going to use these types of camera perspectives that are becoming so popular in other types of media, and we're going to apply it to a multicam format. It's like, it almost in a way, obviously it's not the first people to use, first person perspectives in a comedy, but if you think about the way that we use text messaging or TikTok and stuff in very contemporary comedies, this feels like, let's take a thing that people know and love from this timeline and incorporate it in to give it a little bit of youthful flair.
Yeah, I completely agree. And your other question that you wrote down here is that, are you invested? Are you bought in? Is this something that even as a adult you can still appreciate? Because this is probably the show my parents watched with me the most when I was growing up.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. It's something I remember watching with my dad a lot in my teenage years. I don't think I'm totally bought in on it yet. It feels like a lot of style points right now for me. It's a lot of, we're throwing out these references to establish timelines. It's a lot of jokes about bad perms and World War II memories and things like that. And it also just feels like we're trying to create these archetypes that feel like they're throwbacks to old sitcoms. It feels very Happy Days in a lot of ways, both in that it's 20 years since the time it takes place in. They're both Wisconsin set. The teens spend a lot of time in this palette hanging out at a burger joint. It feels a little All in the Family with Red and Kitty kind of representing the Archie and Edith types, the stern, stoic dad who's out of touch with the young, hipper 70s kid. Yeah, it just feels like it's throwing out a lot of ideas to other shows right now to get you invested. And I don't know if that's enough for me just yet.
I completely forgot about that part where Eric calls Red Sir the entire time. Like, I don't think they continue that as that character gets older. But yeah, I mean, like, for me, I think what does draw me in is the will they won't they of like their best friend next door, like Eric and Donna, their relationship, the hooking up because it's convenient aspect of Jackie and Kelso. And then we eventually get to that snack stand where we meet Fez too. And that Fez is always such like an interesting, like, you need that like the Andy Kaufman character in Taxi. Like, that feels like we gotta throw this extra person in there.
Well, somebody did that. It's the Balky and Perfect Strangers. It's the, introducing Mork in Happy Days.
Yeah.
It's like creating this like oddball other that changes everyone's perspectives around. How many 70s references, now that we're kind of touching on this subject of like layering and painting, did you clock in this pilot? And was it too much, too little, or just the amount of 70s references?
Well, before this show came on, I'd never heard of a Vista Cruiser in general as a brand of car. I don't know if it's real.
I think it's an Oldsmobile.
Is it? It is now. Yeah, I would say that between that, the Todd Rundgren aspect, the perm, the Farrah Fawcett poster in the interstitial, it seemed like they were trying to grab a little bit of like Steven Tyler for that like baby thing, or Steven Tyler or Robert Plant. Yeah. But
so I was gonna say on my end here, everything that I clocked, I've got Captain and Tennille in the parents' party upstairs. I've got the bad perms, a line in which someone says, "It's the gas crisis. What can you do?" Literally watching the Brady Bunch. Shout out to the Turners involved on that movie as well. They want to go to a Todd Rundgren concert. He's no Peter Frampton.
Yes.
A Farrah Fawcett poster singing Led Zeppelin.
Yep.
Hooked on a Feeling by Blue Suede. Doing The Hustle, both in dreams and in real life. Disco dancing. And then finally Todd Rundgren at the end with "Hello, It's Me" in the closing credits.
That was perfect. I really, that feels like enough to like. I also thought it was very funny that they were actually making fun of the Brady Bunch like after they had made a ton of money writing the Brady Bunch movie. I just think that if they overdid it, you would know. But like they're trying to paint a scene, especially for teens who never experienced the 70s. They're just like, all right, here's the weird shit. And this is also around I want to say it's like right before the time VH1 started going with the like I Love the 70s stuff. And like, that feels more like 2004, 2005. Yeah. So like none of these references except for Todd Rundgren and probably Farrah Fawcett, like were something that I would know, period. But that's for the adults who are watching it too.
Yeah, this comes out just a little bit after Dazed and Confused, a little bit before VH1 starts to get into its hardcore nostalgia baiting.
Right.
And it does feel like that thing that happens in pop culture where the people who grew up in a time frame now become old enough to be the people creating the media. And so you write about these things that shaped you. And I think there's always this idea of trends come back into vogue like 20 years later or so. Like you're definitely seeing it now with all of like the early aughts pop culture getting through into like today's pop culture, the sounds of like 90s and early 2000s rock and things like that being so popular in mainstream music. And this feels like the natural version of that for a generation before, where it's, late Gen X, early millennials having this nostalgia for a period that was just before, and they can look at all of the fun stuff without having to have actually lived through the gas crisis,
Exactly. and boy, am I excited that the kids are now wearing Jenkos and listening to Korn again. I never thought I would ever hear that be like a popular moment.
We may have come too far around on the new metal reappraisal, but that's next week's episode.
No, we're fine. Yeah. Also, like I think all these bands are having like a moment of like the When We Were Young fest, all of it all and everything. It is nostalgia baiting, of course. All these bands basically just want to make money and feel that energy again. Most of these people now have moved on to like being producers or just fully out of music in general. But yeah, I mean, there's a very, very similar feeling. I guess you could just put it just go back 20 years, subtract 20 from whatever year it is, and those are the trends that are going to be exciting again. Let's see. So we're moving on now. We have I would say a pretty major calling card of this pilot is that it's not about much. And there is a plot here, I guess, like a combined A1, A2 plot of how do we get to this Todd Rundgren concert that is in Milwaukee, which is a very 16-year-old in the 70s, like, all right, this is how I'm spending all my time trying to figure out how to get here. And then also, are Eric Foreman's parents, Red and Kitty, are they going to give him their car that they're no longer going to use?
Yeah, the why is today different definitely centers around the Vista Cruiser, because it's this new thing thrust into Eric's life, and it's this moment of trust, it's this thing of maturity, and it's that sense of freedom that you get when you have your own vehicle. You are suddenly totally independent, and you have the ability to transport yourself. In theory, you can go anywhere you want, even if your dad says you can't take it out of town. And so that's a very simple but effective why is today different. As for the A plot, yeah, everything just kind of centers around various hiccups or hijinks that lead to them trying to get to a Todd Rundgren show in Milwaukee, whether it's, Michael's girlfriend Jackie wants to tag along, but the rest of the gang doesn't want her to, but she might have money for gas, to a car breaks down, and how are we going to get it fixed without money to get to Todd Rundgren, and what does that resolution lead to? And they're not even really major plot points or beats. It's just kind of like we put the prop car in different areas on the Fox backlot and then shot a little vignette of what's happening as we try to get to Milwaukee. I don't know if you have additional thoughts on this.
I think they were very conservative with the amount of like square footage that they used to shoot this on, which is that's pretty normal for a multicam anyways. I thought it was genius. I really thought it was like all they had to do was they don't even have to move the car. They could have just moved stuff around it. And I thought that was like pretty clever the way they do that. I think with other nostalgia things, if we're talking about Dazed and Confused and stuff like that, there's kind of not really a plot to that either. They want this to be like a slice of life type thing, and I get that. They want to be like, we don't have to save the world. We're kids who are getting high in the basement, and that's fine. This is all a joke mechanism anyways. And I think they did. I think what they did with the somewhat lack of a plot is actually a big service to what drew people to the show in general, which is the rapport between the cast. And I think like you do end up like kind of creating its own language in the way that Seinfeld created its own language. How I Met Your Mother created its own like back and forth rapport like that. And this definitely has that feeling too.
Yeah, it's the four quadrants. It's how are any two characters going to interact in a scene together. And that 70s show spends more of its time establishing that than being bogged down in what is our narrative plot. It is how do parents interact with each other? How do parents interact with kids? What's going to happen down the line when we put Kelso and Donna in a scene together? Or if you put, Jackie and Eric in a scene together, or if you put Fez and Kelso in a scene together, what do those things look like? And so we're really just spending 24 minutes getting you to think about the connective tissue and what these hijinks could be week in and week out.
Yeah. And there's like three little moments in this part of the script that I think really set the tone for what we come to like expect this show to be. And it's kind of just like, oh, we're gonna be more lighthearted than it feels. Like it is all going, no matter how serious one of the cast members gets or one of the characters gets in the show, we're always gonna come back to like, this is a comedy, that we're friends, like that's what it is. So first moment is Kitty and Red talking after Red had just told them not to leave town. And there's that moment of the kids are going out of town and Kitty's like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I told him not to. And I'm like, oh, okay, we get this. Like, kids are going to be the kids. This is going to be like a, it's going to be fake consequences, basically. There's also the moment of when they are going to, or when they are trying to get the battery fixed on the Vista Cruiser, and they end up being able to trade a new battery for 2 concert tickets. And then at the concert, the car mechanic is there with his boyfriend, and they're just cool about it. And I'm like, oh, we're not going to be like, this is not going to be a show that focuses on the discrimination of that era. It is not going to be like, we're not going to gay bash. It's like, it's before the AIDS crisis. It is like, there are certain moments like this that just make you feel like, oh, take a deep breath. It's fine. We're all just joking about stuff. And I actually think that is continued with the fact that they never say Fez's real name and where he's from at any point during the show. That is like the what state is Springfield in kind of like running gag that they have with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of callbacks. There's a lot of runners throughout this as well. We get some of those old school sitcom things you mentioned, the going to the bathroom joke at the concert being a callback to the burger shop scene where the girls go to the bathroom, but then Fez invites Eric to go to the bathroom. This is a very simple, evergreen type of sitcom. And it's really, I think, just trying to engage this like young, early aughts, late 90s millennial audience into multicam, a genre that feels like it is dominated by comics in their 40s and 50s.
Yes.
And this is a young cast. This is like a Beverly Hills 90210 type cast, even younger than that. They range between 15 and 22 in this pilot. And so you are creating a show that is, in a lot of ways, like for teens by teens.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is the entire show is a feeling. It's really not, there are certain moments, especially like in the interstitials, maybe of them like singing Hooked on a Feeling and stuff like that, which I thought was actually pretty funny. It's like, can you imagine like being an actor and it's like, oh, you have to go sing this in kind of like, it feels almost like a little Mickey Mouse Club of just like, we're all young, we're in a troupe together, we're taking helium, we're inhaling helium, and we're singing a song that was popular long before any of us was born.
Yeah, we're gonna yell action and we're gonna roll camera, and then you're all gonna be doing the hustle in a mechanic's garage. You've talked a little bit about things that really set this up for you, that really like established like character development and things like that. And so I want to dive into an iconic stylistic choice that the show does, a runner through its entire series, and that is the use of the basement circle and what this conveys. So if you're not familiar with that 70s show, most episodes feature a scene in which the characters sit in, often Eric's basement, in a circle as the camera pans to each of them, and this represents the smoking of weed. There's actually a very creative way for the show's creators and writers to get around like network standards and practices and be able to imply the characters are getting high without ever showing paraphernalia or weed products and skirt censorship. What are your thoughts of seeing this for the first time? It's essentially a cutaway scene in this pilot that has nothing to do with the rest of the episode. What are your thoughts seeing it for the first time? Is it effective? Are you amused? Where are you at with it?
Well, this is like, I think that plays in so much to the title song of this show too, of like doing the same old thing that we did last week, that kind of thing, where it's like it doesn't seem to fit the plot at all, but they're kids, they're gonna go smoke weed in the basement. I thought this was extremely clever. I completely did not realize that they had figured this part out by the pilot. That's actually very impressive. I did think like, maybe this is something they figured out like 2 seasons in or something like that. It's genius. I'm sorry. It's like to be able to put this on like ABC Family or Fox Family or whatever the first like iteration of the show lived on.
Just Fox.
Oh, just Fox Primetime. Yeah, that's a historically conservative network, and they're going to show underage kids smoking weed. They found a really, really clever workaround. You get a moment of when you're writing the scene, and I was trying to picture the dialogue written out like while they were delivering this, none of it's about anything. They're just like they're having like a conversation about like a conspiracy theory about the gas crisis, and none of them are making cohesive points. They're all like stumbling through their lines and giggling the entire time. So it's like it is that freedom moment of like act like pretend like you're drunk, like for a comedy moment.
Yeah, it is the chance for the writer's room to just go off.
Yeah.
Like, this is your joke machine moment. This is anything that you have that doesn't fit the like actual cohesive fabric of an episode, you could throw in here. You get to do so much scene painting, so much just character painting, and really anything goes in this scene. It also, there's a lot of ways that 70s show stretches out its episodes.
Truly.
Since, like a 22-minute show, you have commercial breaks in there. There are multiple interludes with graphics and characters dancing and little addresses to you that sort of are like hard cuts between scenes. We spend a few minutes in this smoking circle, and when you take all that out, there's maybe like 18 minutes of actual TV in this episode.
If that. And you do like, this is actually the most style notes that I've written down for a show since we did Moonlighting. Like there are so many big swings that they take with the circle. They do, oh my God, the interstitial of them inhaling helium and singing. They do some pretty serious close-up stuff, which is that's super uncommon for a multicam.
A lot of facial cuts, a lot of facial reactions. This is not a show, and maybe it's because they had a very young cast, and so you're like, well, Topher Grace has no idea what to do with his arms right now. He's holding them out in like a perfect T right now. He's got no idea what he's doing. So we're just going to smash cut at everyone's faces and get these big reactions. I think for me, favorite stylistic choice would be, though, Eric getting called upstairs from the circle and having to talk to his parents while high, and just the warping of the background, and just I'm assuming 1988, this is just someone
holding the wall,
green screen, or two people holding a wall and shaking it back and forth, or the walls on a rocker or something like that. But the way that we give you these feelings that you know and have experienced, but we can't say them, they find just such clever ways to skirt teenage experience. Yeah.
And truly, like, I that was, if there was one thing that I wrote down in the things we like segment, it was that exact scene. Like, I just kept thinking about the stagehands like moving back and forth behind them the whole time. And not only that, the way that Kurtwood Smith and Deborah Jo Rupp do their dialogue together, or do like they're talking to the camera, is just them switching back and forth in front of each other. And it's so funny that neither of them are in the frame in the same time. And I mean, it's truly a masterpiece. And then there's also a heavy use of overhead shots, which I wasn't expecting. It was a lot of like crane shots. So they did that for stuff in the driveway. Like when they're laying on the car, there's the overhead shots of them in the basement. And that was like how they exited the circle, the smoking circle. They did the overhead shot of everybody laying back in their chairs and stuff. I thought that was just like genius. They made every single inch of that soundstage studio work for them.
So we've made it through our A plot. We have seen Todd Rundgren.
They get to the fireworks factory.
The hits. We heard "Hello, It's Me," and we end our pilot with one of these overhead shots. It's Eric and Donna laying on the hood of the Vista Cruiser. It's this teen yearning, and best friends since the age of 4. She leads in, kisses him, and we're left with this feeling of, is something budding? Will they, won't they? We've given our protagonist a love interest. Are you interested in following this big cliffhanger into other episodes? Is this something that you felt was shoehorned in? Were you ready for romance in the pilot? I know that you've vocalized on this show, especially with comedies, that you feel like too often they try to like force a love interest in right away. What are you feeling about this takeaway as we wrap up and conclude this pilot?
I'm actually pretty surprised that the kiss between Donna and Eric is that surprising at this moment of the show. because up until that point, they have had a lot of romantic chemistry, a lot of moments alone. They had like the that one moment where they're talking about it's like we've lived. It was like a moment of exposition. It's like, you could have had me when I was 4. We've been living next to each other our whole lives. He's like, he responds, and there I was on the hippity hop. It's a terrific moment. But like what they've done is establish that, like, okay, they're very close. Like, I'm not going to say almost like brother and sister. That's weird. But like they're lifelong friends, but also like they have been physically close and on top of each other nearly the entire time, using like different moments to get next to each other, or like having solo moments together talking about what if we kissed. So I'm like, all right, you're mean to tell me that was the first time? It doesn't feel realistic.
But he's also a sheltered 16-year-old, and so you say like it shouldn't be that surprising. But if you remember being, 16 in the suburbs, everything feels bigger than what it is.
That's true.
And so I think there is that, naivete and this feeling of just like, hold on, like this is really why today is different. Like we've saved it for minute 24. Right. Here is why today is different, and we need to talk about that. But unfortunately, we're out of time.
Yeah, we
have to do one more cut to commercial to start using more potatoes.
and I do really the really relatable moment at the end of that kiss too is the I just wanted to see what it was like thing that Donna says. Eric replies, well, what's it like? And then Donna, in the moment of like punching you on the shoulder and leaving thing, which is like so indicative of childhood and adolescence, is like, you were there. And then she like walks away. I thought that was very, very funny. But I that's our pilot. That is
that is it.
That's it. We have covered all of the plot points that are important to the entire pilot. We do get a little bit of a closing credit scene where they're back in the car singing like they were at the very beginning of the episode. I already talked about what I like specifically about like the wall moving back and forth to essentially be a practical effect of showing what your vision is like when you're high, trying to straighten out talking to your parents. Was there anything that you like that we haven't talked about yet?
I want to give a quick shout out to Eric's dream sequence of what he thinks the parents are talking about at a party when they're all stuck at the gas station. There's multiple examples of them mimicking TV shows, mimicking their parents' thoughts in this, and it's just such a silly 16-year-old thing. It feels like it's in the vein of crank calls and things like that, but seeing the adult cast members of, Deborah Jo Rupp and Don Stark and Kurtwood Smith, miming and mouthing Eric's fake dream sequence dialogue. It's just a fun little bit of texture on it. They find a lot of ways to play little games like that make it feel a little bit less of like a typical multicam sitcom.
You get kind of that feeling too that no matter what, no matter who's on screen, this is always going to be from the perspective of 16-year-olds. That's always that, which I thought was very cool. You're also establishing that like the adults are down for the joke. And yeah, that was a beautiful moment.
Do we have any wait a minute moments?
I don't think so, except for maybe exposition of relationships for everybody. I think we're a little weak on exposition for how and why Jackie and Kelso got together. And then also a little bit, I mean, obviously we just talked about this too, a little bit weak on Donna and Eric. But I mean, I don't know, when you're 16, it's proximity. It's like you want to kiss the girls at school.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's really just that burger joint introduction of Fez and those first ways that we meet him. We immediately kind of throw in this character who's representing the other in small town, whitewashed Wisconsin as being overtly horny and sexualizing the women around him and making jokes about like, people's breasts. And it feels like the one... for Todd Sayers references, it's the one cheap trick they kind of throw into this pilot script. It feels like the one thing in here that's just like the low-hanging fruit. And we're talking about stylistic choices and how we create these evergreen things. And like Fez is just the one thing that feels very lowbrow in this to me.
For sure.
And that stuck out when you only have such a limited amount of time.
Yeah, totally. It just like, it felt like it was written like, what if an adolescent teen had no filter? And fine. I mean, that's maybe not good enough for or like explaining away his actions, but yeah, those I personally don't really have that many wait a minute moments. I mean, I really do love this show. We do have an in-flight question from one Glenn from Minnesota. Can't imagine who that might be.
Submitted to us from Instagram. We'll tell you more about how to submit in-flight questions later on in the episode.
Yeah. So Glenn is asking, what is the same old thing you always did last week, or what they did last week? Or?
What is the same old thing they always did last week? A callback to the iconic theme song of this show.
So this is a question not about us, but about the show. Is like that is that what he's asking?
I believe Glenn wants us to label what is the same old thing, and I'll start. It's smoking weed, Glenn. End of question.
Yeah. It's whatever they're doing in that circle. It's whatever they're doing in that basement. That's the same old thing. And I wonder if they use the circle in every episode. That'd be interesting to find out.
Well, if you want to submit a question to further episodes of TV Pilots License, you can find us on Instagram at TV Pilots License. You can also shoot us an email at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com. If you follow us on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, we will post little sneak previews of future episodes and how to submit to get your question read on air. Let's dive into a little bit of the show's legacy. The show had a run of 200 episodes and 4 specials across 8 seasons at Fox, and has the distinction of being the only comedy from Fox's 1998-1999 slate to be renewed. It is the network's second longest running live-action sitcom behind only Married with Children.
Wow.
The show's first season averaged 11.7 million viewers per episode, and through its first 6 seasons, never dipped below 9.
That's crazy.
Originally airing Sunday nights between The Simpsons and The X-Files, the show spent a year on Mondays as a lead-in to Ally McBeal before settling into the Fox Tuesday night lineup. Following the first season, a British remake called Days Like This premiered, producing the scripts nearly word for word with cultural references swapped out for British audiences. It also featured 2 less successful American spin-offs in That 80s Show in 2002 starring Glenn Howerton, it lasted 13 episodes, and the more recent That 90s Show on Netflix in 2023, lasting 2 seasons and featuring multiple members of the original cast.
That was a reboot, right? Technically?
Reboot, requel, sequel, whatever you want to call it. Both.
Oh, boy, that just hurt my soul to hear.
The show accumulated a total of 82 award nominations with 15 wins. The show was a frequent face in the creative arts categories at the Primetime Emmys, with a win in 1999 for costume design and 16 total creative arts Emmy nominations. And buddy, you better believe there are surfboards. 6 surfboard wins total, with 3 apiece for Ashton Kutcher and Wilmer Valderrama.
Hell yeah.
Despite its massive cultural footprint in the early aughts, the show does leave a complicated legacy in the wake of Danny Masterson's conviction, where he is currently serving a 30-year prison sentence on 2 SA charges.
Yeah. This has certainly clouded the show, I would say. There have been many shows from this era of TV in terms of like NBC sitcoms and Fox shows and stuff like that, that have erased a lot of episodes that involve something that is super not culturally appropriate today. I'm thinking of like the 2 blackface episodes of 30 Rock. I'm thinking about the Michael Jackson episode of The Simpsons. Those have been pretty much like wiped from streaming networks and stuff. Seeing him here basically as a child, he is a child actor essentially in this. Does it give you any like eerie feeling, or just like, or does it paint like a darker cloud over the show in general?
Well, I think it's that it's not an isolated thing that you can wipe, because this show and its cast for the most part were all together throughout the 2000s. And they were so frequently collaborating. So many of these people were frequently on Punk'd with Ashton Kutcher. Right. All of them were kind of intertwined in 2000s pop culture. Kutcher and Masterson, they had a Netflix show called The Ranch together. That's so it's right. Like you have you have so much of an enduring legacy that's based in the camaraderie and ensemble of that 70s show.
Right.
And so unlike, a bad joke or a guest star that you could kind of sweep under the rug, you have to sort of take this as the sum of its parts. And yeah, when you see him on screen, like you can't really not think about the whole of this ensemble.
Yeah. And I know that there's just like a complicated legacy so much with like, people's ties to Scientology and, Mila Kunis's age and eventually Wilmer Valderrama's like connection to a lot of starlets of this age who had famous cocaine problems. And like, it was, not saying anything in particular there, but there's been implications and everything. And I mean, what this feels like for me is that this is just another consequence of child acting, where we just like people get sucked into like really shitty things. Obviously the child acting is not related to what happened with Danny Masterson, but it does create this bond where you want to protect each other from this. And unfortunately, like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis did write letters of support for Danny Masterson for his trial too, which is just
it's also,
I don't know.
It's the idea of like, it's such a supernova and
Right.
It comes up at a time and hits its peak when you're getting into MTV reality in a way that's not just the real world. You're getting into like TMZ really taking shape and that sort of dark side of pop culture. And it feels like this perfect storm of pieces that burned almost too bright. I know it's kind of a heavy subject change after talking about, smoking weed in basements and Todd Rundgren concerts for the last 40 minutes or so.
But it's important
Rich,
with the legacy of the show too.
Do you have a game of the week for us this week?
I do. And this game is actually inspired by a podcast that I've been diving deep into lately by fellow Gen Z member Caleb Heron and his So True podcast. He does, at the end of every episode, he does like a quick true false game. So Max, these are 15 rapid fire statements. I want you to tell me if they did or did not happen in the 1970s. And if you get 10 or more correct, I'm going to buy you a beer this weekend.
Hell yeah.
Stakes are higher than ever. All right. Number 1, the Watergate scandal.
True.
Yes. 1972. Number 2, Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
False.
Nope. 1968. I'm sorry. No, well, you were correct, but
do you want me to say yes or no?
Yeah. Yes or no is perfect.
All right, I'm 2 for 2. Keep going.
Right. First case of HIV in the U.S.
No,
1969. Sorry. 4, the Manson family murders.
No.
1969. Hank Aaron's home run record, home run.
Yes.
1974. Larry Bird's first NBA game.
Yes.
Yes, 1979. 7, Roe v. Wade.
No.
Yes, 1973. Number 8, Detroit Tigers' last World Series win.
No.
No, 1984. 9, the 8-track audio tape was invented.
Yes.
No, 1964. Number 10, first episode of Doctor Who.
Yes.
No, 1963. The first ZZ Top album.
Yes.
Yes, 1971, called ZZ Top's first album. Number 12, Led Zeppelin's first album.
No.
No, 1969. Number 13, the Beatles' last paid concert.
Yes.
No, 1966. Number 14, the Kent State shooting.
Yes.
Yes, 1970. And 15.
You said that way too enthusiastically.
Oh, sorry, I was just excited about you getting it right. And then 15, Disney World opens.
No.
Yes, 1971. All right, you got 10 on the nose correct. Very nice. These are a little bit easier than I thought they were going to be, and that's fine.
And I'm getting a beer. Thank you. That was Rich's game of the week.
So after the game of the week, we always like ask each other 2 more final questions, and that's: would you continue watching the show? That's as it is. Understanding the complicated legacy of the show, but not necessarily making that the entirety of the decision-making process. That's not like how we expect anyone to live their life. No one's perfect. We are consuming media at an alarming rate. And yeah, I mean, are you diving back in for a rewatch of the show? Are you watching episode number 2? And do we think after that 90s show, we get that 2000 show and just try to cram everything in while the current cast is still alive, basically?
So first question here. This is probably going to be a skip for me moving forward. I think I'm just not getting that sense of character development and things that I need to really get invested in. Yes, we're seeing those connections, but it feels very surface. A lot of this feels very surface. I don't think I realized at the time, because I wasn't the age, what a young skewing show this is. And so I don't think going back, it is enough for me to want to keep watching it or to buy into more after the pilot.
What if I told you that a couple of seasons in, we replaced the most important character with Seth Meyers' brother?
I mean, you've really got me with Mad TV's Josh Myers. But as to your second question, do we need that 2000s? Absolutely not. But I think we are seeing examples of 2000s and late 90s culture permeating media more.
Pen 15.
You obviously have, you have Pen 15. If you want to talk about late 90s, I saw the TV Glow last year, that film, which even featured Fred Durst in a very major supporting role to really tie the whole late 90s together.
That's crazy.
You're seeing a ton of late 90s and early 2000s real life news stories getting into miniseries. Things like The Staircase at HBO deal with early aughts news a lot. So I think that you're going to keep seeing things that invoke the early 2000s as period pieces, but I don't think it needs to be quite as explicit as this, because Gen Z's got that covered right now.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I think the spirit of what this is trying to capture is going to stay with us. That's going to be there will at some point in the year 2045 be a 2025 nostalgia moment where they talk about fucking Skibbity Toilet or whatever. And that will be the cultural moment. I couldn't agree more that we should not do yet another one of these that blank show runs. I do think that there is a space for I love the 70s, 80s, aughts, that kind of VH1 type thing to keep running. I think that's just good brain rot TV. Also, how else are we gonna discover Michael Ian Black? And but yeah, I think agreed that I'm not going episode 2 on this, but also it's not necessarily for me and anymore. It certainly was for me when I was 8 through 15 or whenever the show was on. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's we will not escape the capitalism or the capitalizing on nostalgia thing. That'll just never go away now.
Well, with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, that concludes today's flight here at TV Pilots License. For more TV Pilots License, you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at TV Pilots License. You can always write us emails at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com. Subscribe, listen. It helps us so much if you subscribe, if you recommend the show to friends. And Rich, if people want more of you specifically, where can folks find you?
You can find me smoking weed in a circle with all my friends down in our basement. And you can find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. You can find me original sketch comedy from Max and myself over on TikTok at Dadwagon Comedy. And Max?
And you can find me upstairs listening to Captain and Tennille. You can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Sig.
Beautiful. I don't have anything else written out for how we close this.
Listen to Todd Rundgren.
Listen to Todd Rundgren. Please, I just want to reiterate what Max is saying. Please like and subscribe and follow us on social media. It really does make a huge difference. We are actually hitting some pretty solid milestones of listenership right now, which is extremely exciting. And I know that this is a long process to get this podcast to more people. Even just leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or following us on both Apple and Spotify or wherever YouTube, I would seriously recommend checking out YouTube. We're actually growing pretty fast over there. So yeah, please give us a follow. Encourage your friends to follow too. Steal your parents' phone and put it on there. Yeah, whatever you can do, that really, really goes a long way. We don't have ads. We don't have a Patreon maybe yet, but yeah.
And we'll be back with more TV Pilots License next week.
Bam.